6 months ago, I slapped my 70-year-old mother across the face in my kitchen while my 5-year-old son watched. I'm not here to justify it or excuse it or tell you I was right. I'm here to tell you what happens when you spend 40 years running from your worst fear, becoming your mother, and then one day you look down at your hand, still stinging from the impact, and realize you've become something even worse. I'm here to tell you about the 3 seconds that destroyed the person I thought I was, and the 6 months I've spent trying to understand what that makes me now. My name is Sophia. I'm 41 years old, and before I tell you what I did, I need to tell you who my mother is. Margaret, that's her name. She's 70 now, a retired high school English teacher, well-respected in her community, active in her church, the kind of woman neighbors describe as classy and no-nonsense, and really having it together. And she is all those things. She's also the woman who once told me, when I was 7 years old and crying because I'd gotten a B on a spelling test, that I was an embarrassment to the family, and that she didn't raise a daughter to be mediocre. 7 years old. My mother never hit me. That's important to say. She never raised a hand to me, never left a bruise I could point to. Her weapon was her words, delivered with surgical precision at the exact moment they'd do maximum damage. When I was 10 and gained some weight, normal childhood development, puppy fat that would have disappeared on its own, she started calling me the chunky one in front of relatives. We need to watch Sophia's portions. She's getting chunky. When I was 13 and had my first boyfriend, a sweet kid named Tommy who held my hand at the movies, she told me I was too desperate, and that boys can smell neediness. She said this at the dinner table, in front of my father and younger brother, like she was commenting on the weather. When I was 16 and didn't make the varsity volleyball team, she said, "Well, you've never been particularly athletic. Some girls just aren't built for competition." Every criticism was delivered calmly, rationally, with this veneer of "I'm just being honest," or "someone needs to tell you the truth." She never yelled, never lost control. That would have been beneath her. The abuse, and yes, I can call it that now, after years of therapy, though it took me until my 30s to use that word, was always framed as concern, as high standards, as preparing me for a harsh world. I'm only saying this because I love you. You'll thank me later when you're tougher. The world won't coddle you, so neither will I. I learned to perform, to achieve, to be perfect enough that she couldn't find cracks to exploit, straight A's, perfect behavior. No complaints, no needs, no vulnerabilities. And on the outside, we looked like a normal family. A good family, even. My mother was involved in my school, attended every event, made sure I was well-dressed and well-mannered. My father was passive, kind, but checked out, unwilling to intervene in what he called mother-daughter dynamics. People saw a successful woman raising a successful daughter. They didn't see the internal damage, the voice in my head that sounded exactly like hers, the constant feeling that I was fundamentally flawed and only rigorous self-improvement could make me acceptable. I left for college at 18 and barely came home, created distance, built a life, went to therapy in my mid-20s and started unpacking all of it. By the time I was 30, I'd established firm boundaries. Phone calls were brief and scheduled. Visits were short and in public places. I'd learned to greyrock, give minimal emotional responses, don't engage with provocations, protect myself. I thought I'd broken free. I thought I'd healed enough to have her in my life without her being able to hurt me. Then I had my son. I was 36 when Oliver was born. He was perfect, this tiny, helpless human who looked at me with complete trust. And the first thought I had, holding him in the hospital, was, I will never make you feel the way she made me feel. I would be different, gentle, patient. I would see his emotions as valid, not inconvenient. I would build him up, not tear him down. I would break the cycle. For 5 years, I thought I was succeeding. Oliver was an easy baby, a sweet toddler, and a sensitive 5-year-old. He felt things deeply. He cried when stories were sad. He worried about people being hurt. He had a teacher at preschool, Miss Jennifer, who said he had remarkable empathy for his age. I loved this about him. cherished it, protected it. My mother called it weakness. She didn't say it directly at first. That's not how she operates. It started with little comments during our monthly Sunday dinners, a tradition I'd maintained out of obligation and a desire to give Oliver grandparents, even imperfect ones. When Oliver was 3 and cried because he scraped his knee, she said, "Oh, it's barely a scratch. He's very sensitive, isn't he?" When he was 4 and didn't want to go down the big slide at the park, she said, "Maybe he's just not a risk taker. Some children are more timid." Every comment designed to sound observational while planting a seed. Sensitive, timid, weak. I'd redirect. "He's thoughtful, Mom. That's different from timid." She'd smile. "Of course, I'm sure you know best." That smile, I'd seen it my whole childhood. The one that said, "You're wrong, I'm right, but I'll let you learn the hard way." My husband, David, noticed it too. After one particularly tense Sunday dinner when Oliver was 4.5, he said, "Your mom has this way of making everything sound like a compliment when it's actually a criticism. It's subtle, but it's there." "I know," I said. "That's her specialty, death by 1,000 paper cuts." "Why do we keep doing these dinners?" "Because I want Oliver to have a relationship with his grandmother. Because I want to be bigger than the hurt she caused me. Because I keep thinking if I'm present and vigilant, I can prevent her from doing to him what she did to me." "And if you can't?" I didn't have an answer. The breaking point started building about 6 months before the incident. Oliver turned 5 in February. He started kindergarten. He was adjusting beautifully, making friends, loving his teacher. But he was also becoming more aware, more self-conscious, starting to internalize messages about what boys were supposed to be like. One day, he came home from school upset because a classmate, another boy named Jackson, had told him that boys don't cry after Oliver teared up during a story about a lost dog. I held him and said, "That's not true, sweetheart. Everyone cries. Boys, girls, grown-ups. Crying is how our body releases sad feelings. It's healthy." But Jackson said I was being a baby. "Jackson is wrong, and if you need to cry, you cry. I will always think you're brave for feeling your feelings." He nodded, but I could see the seed of doubt planted, the beginning of shame around his sensitivity. I mentioned this to my mother during our next Sunday dinner, casually looking for, I don't know what, validation, support, some acknowledgement that shamming boys for having emotions is harmful. She said, "Well, Jackson has a point. Oliver is going to have to toughen up eventually. The world isn't kind to sensitive boys. You're not doing him any favors by coddling him." I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not coddling him. I'm teaching him emotional intelligence." "You're teaching him that crying will solve his problems. It won't. He needs to learn resilience." "He's 5, Mom. And you were reading chapter books at 5. He's still struggling with 3-letter words. You need to push him more." There it was, the pivot, from his emotional sensitivity to his academic performance, finding another crack. "He's exactly where he should be developmentally," I said, keeping my voice even. "His teacher says he's doing great." If you say so." David kicked me under the table. A warning, don't engage. I didn't, but I felt it, that old familiar feeling from childhood. The tightness in my throat, the heat in my face, the desperate need to defend myself, to prove her wrong, to make her see. I'd thought I was past that. I wasn't. It was a Sunday in August. One of those brutal Midwest summer days where the heat sits on you like a weight. We'd had the air conditioning running all week, and I'd been putting off the Sunday dinner, making excuses, but my mother had called 3 times that week asking when we were coming. "It's been almost a month, Sophia. I barely see my grandson." Guilt, another one of her specialties. So we went, David, Oliver, and me. We arrived at 2. The plan was dinner, maybe an hour of visiting, then home. Oliver had had a rough morning. He'd been playing with his favorite toy, a stuffed elephant named Peanut that he'd had since he was a baby, and the trunk had torn. He was devastated, crying in that wholehearted way 5-year-olds cry, like the world was ending. I'd comforted him, explained we could sew Peanut's trunk, that he'd be okay. Oliver had calmed down but was still a bit fragile, a bit clingy. We walked into my mother's house, the same house I'd grown up in, unchanged in 30 years, and she immediately noticed Oliver's eyes were puffy. "What happened to you?" she asked, not unkindly. "Peanut got hurt," Oliver said quietly. "Peanut?" "His stuffed elephant," I explained. "The trunk tore, he was upset but we talked about it, he's okay now." My mother looked at Oliver with this expression I knew too well. Disappointment masked as concern. "You were crying over a stuffed animal." Oliver nodded, uncertain. "How old are you now, Oliver?" "5." "5, and you're crying over a toy." She shook her head. "When your mother was 5, she was much tougher than that." I felt David tense beside me. I put a hand on Oliver's shoulder. "He's allowed to have feelings about things that matter to him, Mom." "Of course he is. I'm just saying, 5 is old enough to start understanding that crying won't fix everything." We moved into the living room. I tried to redirect the conversation, asked about her garden, her church activities, anything to move past this. But my mother wasn't done. Throughout the afternoon, she found small ways to circle back to Oliver's sensitivity. When he didn't want to play roughly with my brother's visiting dog, she said he was very gentle, maybe too gentle. When he wanted to sit by me instead of exploring the backyard alone, she said he was quite attached to his mother. "Are you worried about separation anxiety?" Each comment delivered to David or me, not directly to Oliver, but loud enough for him to hear, loud enough to land. I should have left, should have made an excuse and gotten my child out of there. But I was paralyzed by the same pattern I'd been stuck in for 40 years, trying to manage her, trying to keep the peace, trying to prove that I could handle this. We sat down for dinner at 5. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, my mother's standard Sunday meal. Oliver was quiet, pushing food around his plate. He'd been withdrawn since the comments started, and I could see him pulling into himself, that spark dimming. "Oliver, eat your green beans," my mother said. "I don't like them," he said quietly. "You need to eat your vegetables." "I don't want them." "Oliver," I said gently, "try a few bites, please." He looked at me with these big, uncertain eyes, picked up his fork, took a tiny bite, gagged a little. He's always had texture issues with certain foods, something we've been working with his pediatrician on. "Oh, for heaven's sake," my mother said, "don't be so dramatic." "He's not being dramatic," I said, my voice tight. "He has sensory sensitivities. It's not something he can control." Sensory sensitivities. In my day, we called that being picky. He needs to learn that he doesn't get to refuse food just because he doesn't feel like eating it. He's not refusing. He's having a physical response to certain textures. You're making excuses for him. You're teaching him that the world will bend to his preferences. It won't. I felt something shifting in my chest. That old anger, but sharper now, because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about my son. I'm not making excuses. I'm responding to his actual needs. You're coddling him, just like you're coddling his crying and his clinginess and his fear of everything. You're raising him to be weak. The word hung in the air. Weak. Oliver's eyes filled with tears. He looked down at his plate, trying to hide it. "Don't you dare," I said, my voice low. "Don't I dare what? Tell you the truth. Someone needs to. You're so worried about his feelings that you're forgetting to prepare him for reality. Boys need to be tough. They need to learn resilience, and you're teaching him the opposite." Oliver was crying now. Not sobbing, just silent tears rolling down his cheeks, his little shoulders hunched. "You're upsetting him," David said, his voice hard. "He's upsetting himself by being so fragile. Oliver, stop that crying right now. You're 5 years old. Act like it." Oliver looked up at her, his face crumpling, and tried to stop crying. He was holding his breath, face turning red, trying desperately to obey her. And then my mother leaned forward and said the words that changed everything. She looked directly at my 5-year-old son, my baby, who was trying so hard to be good to please her, to stop his feelings because she'd commanded it. and she said, "If you don't toughen up, you're going to grow up to be pathetic, weak. No one will respect you. No one will love you. You'll be a disappointment to everyone, especially your father. Is that what you want? To be a pathetic little boy your whole life?" The silence that followed was absolute. I saw Oliver's face, saw the words land, saw something break in his eyes. And I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. I don't remember walking around the table. Don't remember the exact movement of my arm. I remember standing in front of my mother, and then I remember my palm connecting with her cheek, the sound sharp and loud in the quiet kitchen. I slapped her. Hard. Her head snapped to the side. Her hand flew to her face. She stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before, genuine shock. For a moment, no one moved. David was frozen. Oliver was staring. My mother was holding her cheek. And I was standing there, hand still raised slightly, trying to process what I'd just done. "Don't you ever," I said, my voice shaking with rage I didn't know I had, "speak to my son like that again. Don't you dare try to break him the way you broke me. I won't let you." My mother's shock turned to fury. "You hit me. You hit your own mother. You just called my 5-year-old son pathetic. You told him no one would love him. What did you think would happen?" "I was teaching him. You were abusing him, the same way you abused me my entire childhood. But he's not me. I won't let you do to him what you did to me. I never abused you. I gave you standards. I made you strong. You made me hate myself. You made me believe I was fundamentally broken and only perfection could make me acceptable. And I have spent 20 years in therapy trying to undo that damage. I will not watch you do it to my child." Oliver was sobbing now, properly crying, and David scooped him up. "We're leaving," David said. I looked at my mother one more time. The red mark on her cheek was already visible, evidence of what I'd done. "If you want to be in Oliver's life, you will never speak to him like that again. You will never criticize him, belittle him, or try to shame him for having feelings. If you do, you will never see him again. Do you understand?" She was silent, still holding her face, eyes blazing with anger and something else. Hurt, fear. I couldn't tell and I didn't care. We left, got in the car, drove home in silence. Oliver cried himself to sleep in the back seat. David drove with his jaw clenched. And I sat in the passenger seat, staring at my hand, still feeling the impact, still hearing the sound, still seeing my mother's shocked face. I had hit my mother. I had become violent. I had done exactly what I'd sworn I'd never do. I'd used physical force to solve a problem. And I didn't know what that made me. That night, after Oliver was asleep, David and I sat in our kitchen and tried to process what had happened. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No." "Do you regret it?" I thought about it, really thought about it. I don't know. I regret that Oliver saw it. I regret that I proved her right, that I lost control, that I couldn't handle the situation without violence. But do I regret protecting him? No. There were other ways to protect him. I know I should have left the moment she started. I should have maintained boundaries. I should have never put him in that position in the first place. I know all of that. But in that moment, watching her try to break his spirit with the same words she used to break mine, I couldn't think. I just acted. "She's going to use this against you. You know that, right? You hit her. You gave her exactly the ammunition she needs to paint you as unstable, as violent as the problem." I knew. I'd been thinking about it all evening. She probably won't, though, because admitting I hit her means admitting why, means admitting what she said to Oliver. Her public image is too important. She'll suffer the injury in silence and hold it over me privately. I was right. My mother didn't tell anyone. Didn't call the police, didn't tell other family members, didn't make it public. She called me 3 days later. "We need to talk about what happened," she said when I answered. "Okay." "You assaulted me, in my own home, in front of your child. That's unacceptable. You emotionally abused my child, in your home, in front of me. That's also unacceptable. I did no such thing. I was trying to teach him." "Stop, I don't want to hear it. I meant what I said. You don't get to speak to Oliver that way, ever. And if you can't agree to that boundary, you don't get to see him. Silence. Then, you're really going to keep my grandson from me. I'm really going to protect my son from the same abuse I experienced. Yes. More silence. Then quietly. I never abused you, Sophia. I don't know where you got that idea. This was the moment I'd been preparing for my whole life. The confrontation. The chance to make her see, to make her admit what she'd done. But I was 41 years old, and I'd learned something in therapy. She would never admit it, never see it, never acknowledge the harm. Trying to get her to understand was like trying to get blood from a stone. It would only hurt me. I got it from living through it, I said simply. And I'm done trying to convince you. The boundary stands, therapy or no contact. Therapy. Family therapy. You, me, a professional. We address the patterns, you commit to changing how you interact with Oliver, or we're done. She laughed, actually laughed. I'm not going to therapy because you've decided to rewrite history and paint me as some kind of monster. Then we're done. You're being ridiculous. I'm being a mother, something you never learned how to do without causing damage. I hung up. She called back twice. I didn't answer. She sent an email. I didn't respond. 3 weeks later, she agreed to family therapy. We've had 6 sessions so far. My mother and me, with a therapist named Dr. Patricia Chen, who specializes in family trauma and generational patterns. The first session, my mother tried to control the narrative, talked about how she'd raised me with high standards, how she'd always wanted the best for me, how she was concerned that I was raising Oliver to be too soft for the real world. Dr. Chen listened. Then she asked my mother to describe specific instances of her parenting, asked her to detail what she'd said to me as a child, what she'd said to Oliver that day. Hearing my mother repeat those words out loud, in front of a witness, was surreal. I told Sophia she was an embarrassment when she got a B. I called her chunky when she gained weight. I told Oliver he was pathetic and weak, and no one would love him. Just facts, no emotion, no recognition of the harm in those words. Dr. Chen asked, "How do you think those words affected Sophia as a child?" "I think they motivated her. She became successful." "Sophia, how did those words affect you?" I looked at my mother. They made me hate myself. They made me believe I was fundamentally unlovable unless I was perfect. They gave me anxiety, depression, an eating disorder in college, and 20 years of therapy trying to undo the damage. My mother looked genuinely shocked. "You never said anything." "Because you taught me that my feelings didn't matter, that expressing hurt was weakness, that I needed to be tougher." We're working through it, slowly, painfully. My mother still doesn't fully understand what she did, but she's agreed to new boundaries. She can see Oliver only during supervised visits, and if she makes any comment about his sensitivity, emotions, or behavior, the visit ends immediately. She's complied, mostly. There have been slips, but she catches herself now, apologizes stiffly, tries again. But here's what I'm still wrestling with. I hit her. Therapy, boundaries, understanding generational trauma. None of that changes the fact that I used violence against my 70-year-old mother. I've been seeing my own therapist separately, trying to process this, trying to understand what it means about me. "You were protecting your child," my therapist Marcus says. "That's a primal instinct." But I used violence. I became exactly what I fear most, someone who hurts people physically when I can't control them emotionally. Do you think that's what happened? That you were trying to control her? I don't know. In that moment, I just wanted her to stop. Wanted her words to stop hurting my son. And I made her stop the only way I could think of in that split second. Would you do it again? I've thought about this question constantly for 6 months. I don't know. I want to say no. I want to say I'd handle it differently, that I'd remove Oliver from the situation without violence. But honestly, if I saw someone hurting my child and words weren't working and they wouldn't stop, I don't know what I'd do. That's honest. It's also terrifying, because it means I'm capable of violence. I always thought I wasn't. I thought I was fundamentally nonviolent, incapable of hitting someone, but I'm not. And now I have to live with knowing that about myself. Oliver has been in play therapy since that day, working through what he witnessed, what his grandmother said, what it means. His therapist says he's doing well, says he talks about how mommy protected me and how grandma said mean words, but she's learning to be nicer. He doesn't seem traumatized by witnessing the violence, but I am. Because I can't unknow what I now know, I am capable of hitting someone. I have violence in me. It's not theoretical anymore. It's fact. And the most complicated part, I don't feel the guilt I think I should feel. I feel guilt about Oliver witnessing it. Guilt about not removing him from the situation sooner. Guilt about putting him in that position at all. But guilt about hitting my mother, about the red mark on her face, about crossing that physical boundary. It's not there the way I think it should be. Maybe it will come later. Maybe I'm still in shock. Maybe I'm so focused on protecting Oliver that I haven't let myself feel the weight of what I did. Or maybe, and this is what scares me most, maybe part of me feels like she deserved it. I'm 41 years old and I'm trying to figure out what kind of person I am. I'm a mother who will protect her child at all costs. That much I know. I'm a daughter still trying to have a relationship with a mother who hurt me. That's also true. I'm someone who used violence, who crossed a line, who did something I can never undo. That's the hardest truth. And I'm someone trying to break a cycle of generational trauma while learning that breaking cycles is messier and more complicated than I ever imagined. The easy narrative would be: toxic mother says horrible things to grandson, protective mother snaps and hits her. Family goes to therapy, mother apologizes, everyone heals. That's not my story. My mother is in therapy but still doesn't fully understand what she did wrong. She complies with boundaries because she wants access to her grandson, not because she's had some profound realization about the harm she caused. Oliver is okay, for now, but I worry constantly about the long-term impact of what he witnessed, what he heard. David and I are in couples therapy too, working through the aftermath, the stress, the questions about whether we should have maintained contact with my mother at all. And I'm in individual therapy, trying to reconcile the person I thought I was with the person I discovered I could become. I thought I'd broken the cycle by being gentle with Oliver, by giving him emotional safety, by never using the weapons my mother used on me. But I used a different weapon, a physical one. And I don't know if that's better or worse or just different. What I do know is this: I will never regret protecting my son. I will always regret the way I did it. I will never let anyone abuse my child the way I was abused. I will always question whether I responded appropriately or let my own trauma drive my reaction. I will never be the same person I was before that Sunday in August. I will always be trying to figure out who I am now. The internet wants simple stories. Hero versus villain, right versus wrong, justified or unjustified. But life isn't simple. Trauma isn't simple. Parenting isn't simple. I hit my mother. That's a fact. She was emotionally abusing my child. That's also a fact. I had other options I didn't take. True, in that moment I couldn't access those options. Also true, I carry both the weight of what I did and the knowledge of why I did it. They coexist. They don't cancel each other out. 6 months later, here's what I'm learning: you can be a victim of abuse and still perpetrate harm. Breaking cycles doesn't make you immune to creating new problems. Protecting your child is instinctive, but how you protect them is a choice. And sometimes you make the wrong choice for the right reasons. I don't have a neat conclusion. I don't have redemption or resolution or clarity. I have a 5-year-old son who's learning that feelings are okay, that he's loved, that he's safe. I have a mother who's slowly learning to bite her tongue and choose different words. I have a marriage that's weathering this storm. I have therapy appointments and hard conversations and ongoing work. And I have the knowledge that I am capable of violence, that I have a breaking point, that when someone threatens my child, I will stop them, and I need to be more conscious of how. That's where I am. That's what I'm living with. If you're struggling with generational trauma, with toxic parents, with the question of how to protect your children from people you love who hurt them, I see you. It's messy. It's complicated. There are no easy answers. I made a choice in a moment of crisis. I'm living with that choice. I'm trying to learn from it. I'm trying to be better. That's all any of us can do. What would you have done? Have you ever hit a breaking point with a toxic parent? How do you protect your children from generational trauma? I genuinely want to know, because I'm still figuring this out.